Two friends roasting X-Men Origins. Rebecca Rumpton nipping Emmett's toes. Canadian carols being sung by Fox. And guests on every episode. Everybody knows whether it's a flop or it's a bop. Hugh Jackman's sideburns turning white. Cyclops with his eyes all aglow will find it hard to sleep tonight because he's dead. And so we're offering this simple phrase from episodes 1 to 92. Although it's been said many times, many ways, fresh out the oven, it's cinema bums.
Fresh out the oven. Fresh out the oven. It's cinema bums. Merry Christmas, everyone. I have a little machine, turns humans into clay. I'll use it before it's ready, then the humans it will slay. Oh, Magneto turns humans into clay. It's the plot of X-Men 1 and every other X-Men movie. The humans he will slay. Happy Hanukkah, everyone.
Happy Hanukkah, everybody.
Should old movies be forgot and never brought to mind? Should bad movies be forgot and days of future past? For old movies, my dear, for old movies, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for old movies. Happy New Year, everyone! Woo!
Happy saddest song in the world.
It's a Cinema Bums holiday special.
It's fresh out the oven. We are toasty.
I'm Wade.
And I'm Emmett.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. And we are joined today by two very special guests. They need no introduction because they're going to introduce themselves with their own quippy remarks. Go ahead.
Oh, God. I wasn't prepared for this. I'll introduce you, Kelly.
Okay, wait, I'll introduce you too.
Oh, cool.
We love that. Okay.
Yeah. Across from the table is the one and only Kelly. That's all I have. Is that okay?
Yeah.
She's great. We love her. She's wearing a cute Santa hat.
It is plaid, which is a superior pattern.
Yeah, cute Santa hat.
Superior to which, would you say?
Yeah, which
like stripes or polka dots or checked or
some hot takes.
Houndstooth.
Already some hot takes.
Okay, listen. Houndstooth, not a pattern. It can get the hell out of here. That's something for chef's pants. It is not something for bags or for pea coats. Get out of here.
Interesting. Across my table from
this
me.
Is not your table.
I'm sorry. Is our sweet lady Laura.
Yay!
And you gotta say it like that. Laura.
Laura.
She likes to dye her hair a lot and she always looks hot.
I just dyed it today.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here, both of you.
Thank you. Thank you for your song. At no point did I know where it was going, where it came from, or when it was going to end.
Yes.
You don't know those old holiday classics?
Wait, you've never heard the old holiday classic of Should Old Movies Be Forgot?
I've never heard anything so sweet. So
it was brought tears to my eyes. Truly.
So this is a little holiday special. As someone who listens to a lot of podcasts, I always get a little annoyed that podcasts don't put out episodes over the holidays because it's normally when I have more time to listen to podcasts.
True.
Mm-hmm.
When I have time off and I'm driving and I'm sitting around. So we didn't want to take a week off, but we wanted to take the chance to talk about the year that was, 2020.
Yeah.
We made it through, and the movies we watched during it. Let's talk about the way we watched movies this year.
Yeah.
Because it was different than any year before. I guess, how do you guys feel about watching movies mostly at home, the way we've watched new movies this year, as opposed to previous years, and the types of movies we're seeing?
I was just going to say, my movie watching has changed exponentially since I became friends with you, Wade, because you love going to see movies. And so I feel like I started seeing movies in theaters so much more when we became friends. And then living together, it would be like probably like at least bi-weekly thing. So I feel like it was such a sudden change, like living with you and going so much, and then just being like, we now have our TV, which has this weird ghosty thing at the bottom of it.
Oh yeah, we watched so many movies on that terrible TV.
And you making us still delicious popcorn every time, but just like a full different experience. Like it's like it used to be such like an outing, like a fun event. It still is a fun event, but it's like I'm still in my house. Like I'm not as like it's not this like event.
I have a very similar experience to Kelly because I love going to the movies, but I would go to the movies maybe 4 times a year max. That's a bit much growing up, except I would go on $5 Tuesdays when I could, because that was a great deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, in the last couple of years while we've been dating, I have gone to the movies a lot, so much, and it's so fun. I love it. It really has like, it's a very sentimental experience for me now, and also it's very weird not having that date night movie date, which is just so fun. And it really is an experience, like going with a group of friends to go see a horribly scary movie or you know, it's just something great to do that everybody is usually down for. And it is strange, but it is a bit more comfy at home on the couch, wrapped in blankets.
That's true.
I love going to the movie theater so much. Like, I love going to see movies in movie theaters so much that I would almost rather go see a movie that I didn't like than not do anything. You know, like if I could go and watch a bad action movie at the 250 cinema, I would rather do that than like just do something else with the rest of my afternoon, just because I enjoy going to a movie and like that whole thing. I think it's really exciting. I think seeing stuff on the big screen is really awesome. And I don't think like, I do think that's true of action movies and of like big blockbuster films, but I think it's equally true of like a movie, like a big drama that I can think of that I loved on the big screen was Phantom Thread from a few years ago, which was like totally something that would have worked on the small screen, but seeing it on the big screen was something else. You know, it's like, oh, it's so cool. Yeah. And I think it's like, it's special to have that space where you go and like, everyone in that space agrees like there's certain rules here. We're all going to be quiet. We're all going to focus on the film. Nobody's going to like do anything really to distract from anybody else's experience of it. I think that's pretty cool. I miss it a lot. On the other hand, I think we've watched a lot more movies this year, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that is a good point. We did watch more movies this year than I watch in a regular year because they're a lot more accessible at home, which is not nothing. I do really miss going to the theaters. It's not something I'm worried about. Like, I think for sure it will come back. And I think it will come back in much the same way that it was when we left. And if there are changes, maybe they're for the better, you know? Yeah, but I would say the way I watch movies was fundamentally changed this year because I used to be a person who would really only go and watch movies in the theater. Like, I didn't really like watching movies at home. And so if I ever did watch like a movie, a new movie of that year, it would be like on my iPad or on my laptop or on like the quarter busted screen we had. So a big change this year is that I actually bought a nice TV because I was like, if this is going to be how we watch new movies. Yeah. And so I think that normalization of a new movie, like that it's something you still get excited for, but you just turn it on in your house. That has been, in some ways, a cool thing. And there has been a lot of good stuff that came out this year. Like, I think there are some people who just think that no movies at all came out this year. But there have been, like, a lot of great movies that have come out this year. Yeah. I want to ask you guys about the kinds of movies that came out, because it was very interesting to see all of the big blockbusters obviously immediately got pushed back. like the Fast and Furious, the Black Widow, the James Bond. That stuff was immediately like next year. But also any big awardsy stuff that felt like maybe it was going to make a lot of money also got pushed back. Like stuff like Nomadland or One Night in Miami that would normally be coming out in theaters this time of year if it wasn't bought by a streaming service. Like that stuff also kind of got pushed back. The things that were supposed to be in theaters that did get released were like animated movies, like Trolls World Tour, Scoob, or Soul.
Is Scoob out?
Scoob came out like in May.
Okay.
There's a little Christmas treat for you.
Yeah, no kidding. Some Scooby snacks.
And it was like studio comedies, which they just shoved out the door.
Yeah.
Like Palm Springs or Happiest Season, like big comedies that were supposed to play in theaters. Did you guys miss seeing a blockbuster, like a big tentpole Avengers style movie, or has it been just as engaging without them?
For me, the things that they did push out are the things I probably enjoyed the most. So like, I mean, we got to see Tenet, which pretty much filled that one action movie per year need of mine. But I really enjoy animated. I love Trolls World Tour. It was awesome. And I love Palm Springs. And I just love those little like kitschy films or kid films or like just small art films. Like I prefer those to the big movies usually. So, I mean, there was a little bit missed just by like not having the excitement of going. But as far as genre, I was satisfied.
I feel like it's pretty 50-50 for me. I really, there's a couple I was really like looking for, like Quiet Place 2, and like I really want to see the Black Widow movie, just stuff like that. But I'm kind of more into like the indie arts films, so stuff like Palm Springs or Vast of Night that still did come out, and I like loved, and it was fine watching those in my home, and like I kind of actually almost enjoyed and maybe preferred those in my home because I was with you guys or like another one of our friends, and like being able to like discuss it and be like really like, oh my gosh, like we're not in separate cars driving home, like we get to like immediately to discuss this like, oh my gosh, this one moment, oh yeah, I love that. So I think it's like 50-50 for me.
I will say this year, like honestly, I enjoyed a lot more rewatching old stuff. And we're like, I know that's not really what this episode's for, but I just like, there's a lot of stuff from the past and from like old classic movies that I really enjoyed watching this year, because like when you're forced to go and watch it on streaming, everything is like kind of on equal footing, you know, so like you're just as likely to go watch something from 20, like that's also 50 years ago.
Doing like comfort movies, because this year has been like, so you're like, I know I like this, I don't like everything else sucks, so I'm gonna go with like something I know is gonna make me happy.
Yeah, I feel about the blockbuster movies kind of the same as theaters. Like I like them, but I know they'll be back. I do every now and then miss the hype cycle. Like I miss getting to watch a really cool trailer for a movie and being like, I can't believe that is coming out. And I also think the further they all keep getting pushed back, like the weirder it's going to be when they all come out at once. Because these are also the only types of movies that are filming right now, because they're the only ones big enough to like afford to take the proper precautions. Right. So it's like Jurassic World, which shot for like a year and a half because of how slow they were filming because of COVID, or like Mission Impossible. Like those are the movies that are being actively made right now. So it's like whenever they do think that it's financially possible to drop them, I feel like we're just going to get like one a week, and then we're going to be numb to that too, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that'll be absolutely nuts. That'll be crazy.
I also really miss seeing good horror movies, because I love watching horror movies, but they really scare me, so I won't seek them out. But when one is coming out that looks good, I will always go see it. And I really miss that. It feels like they've only put out sort of like the schlocky garbage this year. They've been sitting on all those good ones. I'm absolutely buzzing to watch Saint Maud, which is one of the movies that came out in Britain because they have functioning cinemas and just has no release plan in America because they don't want to drop it on streaming. But it's also they're not going to make any money if they put it in theaters. How do you guys see the future into 2021 shaping up a little bit? Obviously, we know how things are now. Some cinemas are open in a very limited release, but no real movies are getting released there. We just heard that Warner Brothers are putting all of their movies on streaming as well as in theaters for all of 2021. So stuff like Dune, The Matrix 4, The Suicide Squad, Space Jam 2, all of that stuff is going to be released at home for free. Disney also just announced 400 new titles coming just to Disney Plus. So how do we see, obviously things are moving towards streaming. How do we see the future of this next year rolling out?
I feel like at a certain point, you've got to consider the fact that you're saving money by buying yourself a nice big TV and a subscription to Warner Brothers or to like HBO Max to watch all those Warner Brothers movies, or to Disney to watch like The Mandalorian or like whatever other bazillion things they're doing.
Yeah.
I am certain also that movie theaters will be coming back, but I feel as though they're like prime time, like their heyday. I don't know. Yes, their heyday. I feel like they're when we have kids, I feel like the movies will not be something people do, but possibly something like our kids do as a way to be like, look at this cool old thing that people used to go do, which is like really weird to think about. And that might not even be true. But I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, I wonder if because of this, like going to the movies is just like becoming a way more casual thing, just maybe a thing like people do less. I don't know, just kind of slowly over the years. This is kind of the gateway to like rely on streaming for a lot of people. Yeah,
I think that this pandemic is going to get blamed for a lot of things by movie studios that I think were already happening. Well, which we've talked on the podcast a little bit, tracking how the most popular movies of the year have changed over the last 2 decades. But I think already people will not really go out to see an adult drama. You know, like we will, like people will, but like right now it's sort of like what you go see in theaters are the big tent poles. Like the Star Wars, the MCU, the things that you are scared to have spoiled for you. It is worth noting that cinemas did close down in 1918 for the influenza and bounced back after that, as we've seen.
There also wasn't streaming, though. There was like no way to access that kind of thing.
That's a good point.
Which I feel like already with the existence of Netflix had been, and not like Netflix. I feel like Netflix started streaming kind of. I feel like with its existence, movie ship has already like been on the decline.
I also think it's interesting that the only people making like crazy money at the movie theaters are these big studios, and now what those studios are trying to do is get on streaming. Like, it's like already the only people who were making money were Disney off of Star Wars or Frozen. But now, like, they're trying to get you to go to Disney Plus for those things. I mean, it's also noteworthy that, like, if you're a family of 5 and you want to go see Soul.
Sure.
And you live in, say, Atlanta, you can go to the movie theaters and that's $200 with popcorn and tickets.
Yeah.
Or you could pay $8 for a month of Disney Plus and watch it there for free, you know?
Yeah.
So I think like that's just a huge reality for people too. I do want to say just briefly, don't have anything to say about this. I think and will always think it is very suspicious how many things ended in 2019. This is not a conspiracy theory.
What's that?
I just think it's really interesting that Disney finished buying Fox, which they had spent 3 years trying to do. Finished Star Wars, finished the MCU and the Avengers, and launched Disney Plus, and HBO finished Game of Thrones and launched HBO Max, all in the 1 year before cinemas closed.
Do you think Disney did COVID?
Disney did COVID.
Disney did COVID.
They were in China doing the live action Mulan.
Disney did COVID.
You think Ground Zero was that Mulan shoot?
was on the Mulan set.
My gosh.
This goes all the way up. If we are
Guys, we have
dead
to
by
start-
the time you
yeah.
listen to this podcast. You have to go and track down the truth. The deep truth. Mulan deep truthers.
All right, one last point before we get into recommending some movies. I just want to talk about this year really being big for theater on film. So I've got some lists here. These are the projects we had. In terms of professionally filmed and released big theatrical performances, this is a rough list I've assembled. I might be missing some. We've got Hamilton, David Byrne's American Utopia, The Boys in the Band, What the Constitution Means to Me. I guess The Boys in the Band would be a film. So here are some of the other films made out of plays. The Prom, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Wild Mountain Time, Blithe Spirit, One Night in Miami. And that's not including the ones that were scheduled for this year and got pushed back, including West Side Story, In the Heights, Diana the Musical, Dear Evan Hansen, 13, and Wicked. So a pretty huge year for theater on film. What do you guys make of that?
Did American Son also come out this year on Netflix?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. That was just...
Oh, that's fine. I don't even know what it is.
It's a play. It's
Does
Kerry
it have
Washington,
Kerry Washington, Jeremy Jordan.
It's about police brutality also.
I think it's really a very good thing. I think it's a very good thing for, hopefully, I think it can be a very good thing for future theatrical productions, for maybe the return of Broadway, because I think you're having a lot of people at home watching things. And I think you're going to have a lot of people watching theater. And a lot of these shows will be still running on Broadway when everything opens back up. Like Wicked, I'm pretty sure The Prom's still there, Hamilton's still there.
Interestingly, Diana the Musical was set to open, never did, and is now going to be, a live performance of it is going to be filmed and released as a movie prior to Broadway opening back up and people being able to see it in person for the first time.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting. I think a lot of the things filmed straight from Broadway are going to be very helpful. I think that is a point of contention a lot of times, because a lot of theater artists, Broadway artists, don't like people watching bootlegs or don't necessarily like the thought of people watching on TV, because then it takes away from people coming to see it. But I don't think that is the case. I think people recognize that seeing something live is so different than seeing it even filmed live, and I think you're going to create fans out of putting that kind of stuff on streaming platforms, and I think people will want to go see it. I still want to see Hamilton in person. Just because I watched the live filmed version and a bootleg does not mean I don't want to go see it in person. So I think it's really interesting. I hope it sparks like a love for that and reminds people of their love for that, so that they can have that support still when they reopen, because they're certainly going to need it. And I really hope that that translates over. I think there's also a danger of possibly movies like The Prom, where it is clearly like just not anywhere close to as good as the actual Broadway musical. All the actors, most of the choreography, the way they use the songs, just not even close to as good as the actual show. And people might be like, that's not good. I don't want to see that. But it's really not a fair representation of what it actually is. So there's also a risk there. I hope that it's a more positive than negative thing, but I think it could be either one.
It does cause me pause, though, because I'm concerned about the future of theater in that. I mean, Broadway is already so commercialized, but then maybe only wanting to produce shows that are like palatable to a much larger, broader audience, and not like really pushing theater and like doing shows that are important or still good, but maybe not going to make the money of being films at a later date.
I feel like that has been happening for a very long time.
Yeah.
Especially when they're trying to like quickly earn back a lot of money that they've lost over the past year, possibly like not signing on to do shows that are like a little bit more deep.
Well said. I think it's also notable, like, the quality of film performances we got this year was raised so exponentially. Like in Hamilton, which we have to talk about, and in David Byrne's American Utopia, filmed amazingly by Spike Lee. Both of those, you're not getting the experience of being in the audience. Like, you are seeing a version of that show that no one else is seeing, because they're doing close-ups, they're moving the camera around while the actors are there. They've watched the show 30 times, and they're like filming a movie on stage out of those people. So it's like, that isn't really replacing the experience of sitting in a theater and watching it. And it's also gives you kind of more of an appreciation for what those people are doing when you are 5 feet away from them as opposed to when you're 500 feet away from them. It's just like appreciating the different kinds of acting they're doing at the same time. And I'm much more interested in seeing film performances like that rather than just sort of like the film performances it feels like we've gotten a lot of, which is like back of the house, flat on, maybe a couple cuts to the sides, just like someone filming a show, giving you the experience of sitting in the best seat of the house rather than making a meal out of it, you know?
Right, yeah.
Cool. Well, let's get into actually recommending some of our favorite movies of the year.
Okay.
I want to segue seamlessly into talking about Hamilton. This is a movie I didn't necessarily think would be fair to include on my list of favorite films because it's a film performance, but it absolutely was one of the 10 favorite things I watched this year. It was, I think, to me, the thing that felt closest to a blockbuster. Like the thing that I was the most hyped to see, that Disney Plus marketed the best, and that I sort of planned a weekend around as opposed to anything else. They dropped it on July 4th. Yeah, I think even as someone, I know that Hamilton has sort of run the gamut from being the coolest thing in the world to like the most overhyped thing of the world to like an interesting examination of what that time was like in America back to being very popular. But as someone who listened to the soundtrack a lot when it first came out, I still learned so much from watching it that I had no idea. Kelly, thoughts on Hamilton?
Wow. I was obsessed. I've been obsessed with Hamilton actually since like 2009 when Lin-Manuel Miranda sang the titular song Alexander Hamilton at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And he said he was just going to make a mixtape out of it. And at that point I was like, oh, this is incredible. And then I was one of those people who were like, when it came out, I loved it. But then I was like, everyone needs to stop talking about it. It's overhyped. I hate it. And then I wouldn't listen to it for like 3 years. I've kind of come back around to in the past year being like, it's still actually so good. But watching it, it is like, it was incredible. Like chills. Like I will sometimes just go back and watch specific scenes of it because they just like made such an impact on me. And like there's just things you don't get from listening to the soundtrack that you're like, oh, this is what's happening in this moment. And the performances, it's insane. The like dancing, the singing, the just like the subtle moments. There's so many subtleties in it from like the characters, not even the forefront characters, but the ones like standing behind. And I agree with the way it was filmed, because it was filmed like back of house, like one stand camera. But you really get to see all of that because of the camera angles at being so well done. It was one of my favorite things I also watched this year.
Yeah, I completely agree. I absolutely loved it. Coming from someone who didn't really listen to the soundtrack that much, but like recognized that it was just like kind of a masterpiece. It's a great experience. It was. I felt really lucky being able to watch it. And I'm really glad that it made that accessible to so many people. I think it coming out on July 4th after the murder of George Floyd and a slew in the middle of Black Lives Matter protests, really in the heat of it all right there, led to some really interesting conversations regarding Hamilton, which I don't think have really been brought to light, and that kind of allowed for a lot of good conversations about that. Just that it is a show that gives so many people of color opportunity in playing roles that typically wouldn't be played by people of color in any sort of historical play or musical. So I think there is some wonderful, wonderful opportunity there and work that was done to make sure that happened. And even in the touring companies as well, it was a consistent thing and it's an important thing. I think the interesting conversation that happened is the importance of recognizing that these people that are kind of being glorified in this musical shouldn't be. And Hamilton does glorify those people and their stories and makes them out to be heroes when a lot of them did a lot of horrible things to Black people, to Indigenous people, and it's just definitely something to be considered. I would still recommend watching this musical. It's an incredible musical. I just think it coming out on July 4th came with a lot of mixed feelings for a lot of people, and I think it is a wonderful thing to watch. But to keep that in mind, and maybe to keep that in mind going forward as a creator, as a performer, as someone who just takes in art and theater, to recognize why it's important to have people of color playing any roles and giving them as much opportunity as possible and more, but also recognizing that the stories need to be real, and the importance of not glorifying the people of America's past that shouldn't be glorified. So I think I would definitely recommend it, but that's something to keep in mind when you watch it going forward, and when you watch all things going forward.
Well said. 2 takeaways from it that I didn't get from listening to the soundtrack. I'd just like to mention one, that Daveed Diggs is the most incredible performer in the world. Literally for most of this year, every single day after seeing it, I have thought in my head of different movies I could write to get Daveed Diggs to be in them, because he is so amazing in it. Also, that Anthony Ramos's Lawrence is in love with Alexander Hamilton, which changed the way I see a lot of that musical.
Yes,
which is something that you never would have known listening to the soundtrack, but watching the performances, like that whole queer aspect was very moving. That's Hamilton on Disney Plus. Emmett, you got some movie recs for us?
I do. 1917.
Woo!
Sorry, a little disclaimer about how I do this. I make a year-end list every year, and a list of all the movies I watch every year. They're based on wide release dates, not on limited release dates. So what most critics do is movie theaters will put out their big awards movies in a limited release, which means just in New York and LA, in the very end of the calendar year, and then wide release it in the coming months. And so I always base my dates off of when people could actually see it.
Okay.
So this year, 1917 and Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which came out in January and February, are on my 2020 list, where they were on most critics' 2019 list. And things like Nomadland and One Night in Miami, which are on a lot of critics' best of 2020 lists, but aren't coming out until February for us to see.
2021.
So
I see.
Sam Mendes is 1917.
It's awesome. George McKay is crazy good at it.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't there's not a lot of speaking in this movie. It's a lot of physical acting. It's a lot of his eyes telling the story. It's a lot of crazy, terrible things happening to this poor man as he just runs across the trenches. It's affecting, it's moving. It probably glorifies war and all that other BS that we don't like about war movies, but it is totally one of the better ones, I would say. Also, shot by the legendary Roger Deakins, and it is gorgeous.
Yeah, the cinematography alone should be is a reason to go see it. Also, just it's so unique in that you're on the journey with these 1-2 people the whole time, and you have no idea what else is going on in the movie, which you never get to really experience, and it was awesome.
But that the whole world is there. It's built, and they're running through it. But yeah, exactly.
You don't know anything but what they know.
Yeah, I don't think we mentioned the main conceit, but this is a World War I movie that is made to look in one shot the whole entire time. So it takes place in real time in one shot. The camera never breaks.
Yeah.
Also from Sam Mendes, who's a director I really like, the whole movie is kind of a love letter to his grandfather, who was a World War I soldier and then a very famous poet after that, writing about his experience in the war. And a lot of it is based on stories he told. So.
Wow, that's really cool.
That's
also,
so
co-written by Christy Wilson Cairns.
Christy Wilson Cairns, yes.
Who is also writing what was my most anticipated movie of this year and is now my most anticipated movie of next year, One Night in Soho, the new Edgar Wright film.
Oh.
And is also co-writing with Taika Waititi his Star Wars movie.
Whoa.
I have 3 that I wrote down that are just my top 3 movies. My top 3 were Bad Education, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, and Vast of Night. So
let's talk about Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
It's just awesome. It's beautiful. It's stunning. I watched it with Wade and our friend Adam, and Adam and I did not know the premise of this movie when we went into it. And when you watch a movie and you're like, wow, those people have chemistry. They got some sexual tension,
James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender.
Precisely. You're wow, this is very homoerotic. This is incredible. So me and Adam were sitting there and we're like, these girls love each other. We're like, come on. They love each other. They're gonna kiss. Come on. Totally joking. But there was serious tension there. So we were just yeah, that's incredible. Wow. It is a gay film. And when they kissed, we were like, wait, is this a gay film? This is a gay film. This is a lesbian film. And he was like, yeah, I knew the whole time. And it was incredible and beautiful. Yes, I don't know. That was just a funny story from my experience watching it. But it made me cry. Stunning cinematography. Mm-hmm. It's about an artist who is hired to paint this other woman's portrait and their love for one another that is not allowed. It is a secret.
Yeah, it's a French period piece. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And really tender. And I love seeing the work of female directors, and when you see movies like this, it makes you want to see it so much more, because it's like the type of story you've seen before but told from a way that never gets told.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's available to stream on Hulu. Kelly, you got a movie to talk about?
My top two were definitely Birds of Prey, but I think my number one is Palm Springs.
Oh yeah,
I loved that movie so much. It's kind of everything I love, like Hawaiian shirts and Andy Samberg.
It is very real.
Like desert vibes.
Relevant to your
all
interests.
things I love. Andy Samberg and Hawaiian shirts. That's all of them.
That's all I love. It was so good. I love like a little like funny indie, like quirky comedy kind of thing. I also felt, when did it come out? July-ish? It was like...
yeah, we watched it on my birthday, or right after my birthday.
Yeah. So I watched it with Wade and our other friend Ashlyn, and it was just like really fun to see. The premise is these two characters get stuck together in a
time loop.
They are just repeating the same day over and over. It's the female character's sister's wedding day. And it is so good. It also reminded me so much of Quarantine. I felt like I was like,
very timely.
I feel these characters like agony of being stuck in the same day and not going anywhere. But it's also, you know, they got out of it. They worked through it. They learned to love it. It gives me hope for when the next shutdown comes. I will be able to endure it.
Yeah, we'll just watch that movie again and it'll be fun.
Yeah. No, I think it's really sweet, and there was like a lot of like very actually like deep and profound moments in it, as well as being like hilarious and very well shot for like a smaller budget like comedy film. Highly recommend. 10 out of 10. Go watch it, and we love our man Andy.
Yeah, I love this movie. I love getting to watch it with you. I, as a writer, was so impressed because I feel like we get a lot of these time loop Groundhog Day movies, and they're always a metaphor for the same thing. And it's like a good, solid metaphor, but it's always like that the protagonist is trapped in an emotional moment and they need to learn how to move past it. It's a physicalization of that metaphor. And so this movie, using it as a metaphor for monogamy and for thinking about how like most people live the same day of their life every day in committed relationships, and like how do you value yourself and find enjoyment and like not get lost in the repetition? Like how do you find the stuff in that? I thought was so cool and lovely. That's Palm Springs on Hulu. And I want to tell this to you, Kelly. I'm not sure if you've heard this. At their 4-hour long investor meeting the other day, Disney Plus announced a live action Rescue Rangers starring Andy Samberg as Chip and John Mulaney as Dale.
Unbelievable. Kelly's dreams have come true.
I'm going to pass away now.
Wow.
We'd love to see it. Emmett, anything else? Other movies we want to talk about.
Other movies. Artemis Fowl.
Kenneth Branagh's Artemis Fowl. Adapted from
Eoin Colfer's
novel, available on Disney Plus.
It's starring Fergus Shaw, Laura O'Donnell, Josh Gad, and Nanzo Anazi as the butler. And Kenneth Branagh did not decide to play Artemis Fowl in this adaptation. Shockingly.
I wish he had.
I wish he had. This movie makes how much sense, Wade? How much sense does this movie make?
32?
32?
32 cents.
32 cents? It made about 32 cents. It looks like it was made for about 32 cents. Josh Gad's jaw unhinges at one point, and it's the most horrifying
at
thing
several points
I've seen since the part that you know what I'm talking about in Midsummer. And
you're recommending this to us?
no, I'm just saying it's a movie that we watched that I had to just like shout out for being the weirdest imaginable.
It's nice. Good to know.
Movie that we got drunk and watched at 1:00 on a rainy Sunday, which is how I would recommend doing it.
Yeah, if you're going to watch it, do it that way. Other movie, Sonic the Hedgehog.
Woo!
The last movie that Wade and I saw in theaters, Wade saw something else after this, but this last one I saw in theaters. And
That was a lovely night.
it was a lovely night.
I cut your hair. It was
Aw.
right after Valentine's Day, because this movie came out on Valentine's Day, and we listened to that 20-minute Green Day album, and then we went out and we watched this movie by ourselves.
Weird night.
No, it sounds like a sweet like Valentine's Day between you guys.
It was very sweet.
It was nice.
And so was this movie.
This movie is so sweet. This movie is about Ben Schwartz as a blue porcupine-shaped space alien named Sonic the Hedgehog, who befriends good guy cop James Marsden.
This is a fictional kids movie.
Against bad guy scientist Jim Carrey. and like mayhem and hilarity ensues. You have to go watch it. It's incredible.
I will.
Yeah,
Maybe.
highly recommended. I've for a long time said that to be truly great, a movie needs to have a dance sequence, and one of the best dance sequence of the year from Jim Carrey in this.
Yeah. Incredible.
And one of the best like physicalizations of a villain.
Yeah.
Great to see him having so much fun.
Ben Schwartz, killer.
Killer.
Ben
Hey.
Schwartz is always a killer.
Speaking of Ben Schwartz, we don't like to talk about TV on this podcast, but is there something you wanted to mention, Laura?
Middleditch and Schwartz, baby. It's amazing. I've watched it 4 times. It's a series of a four-part series.
Three, I think it's
3-part
three.
series, 3-part series, featuring our good dear friend Kay Evans. She's in it. She's the star of it. You have to watch all the episodes to find out which one she's in.
Ben
She is
Schwartz
the star of it.
sits in her lap.
Yeah, don't give it away.
You just
Sorry.
gave it away.
Wait, can
That's a
cut
little
this
tease.
out.
It's a little
It's a little
tease.
tease. It's a little wow.
It's wonderful. It's an improv comedy series. Just Middleditch, Tom Middleditch and Ben Schwartz working together, tag teaming some hilarious sketches based off of audience questions and stories.
I do want to just like give a shout out to this improv. It's fine. It's never been my favorite thing ever to watch. I adore this. It is some of the best spontaneous acting, and they have like the best chemistry. Like, just they know exactly what they're doing. I cannot recommend it enough. I quote it all the time.
Also, it's so funny that it's easy to not mention that they shoot the hell out of that thing. Like, it is so well shot. It puts you in the head of the improvers because they are following their physical movement. They are doing so closely that you are like on the edge of your seat trying.
What could they possibly do?
Yeah,
what are they
trying to
gonna
think
do
of what
next?
comes next because they're also such kinetic performers.
It's so stressful to watch.
Now I want to watch it.
Yeah, I may go home and
It's
watch
really
it.
lovely. That's Middleditch and Schwartz on Netflix. Emmett?
The movie 40-Year-Old Version is one of my favorites that we watched together this year.
Mm-hmm.
It was written and directed and starred Rada Blanc as basically
Herself.
playing a version of herself as she navigates being a teacher, having a career in theater as a playwright and director, and then also becoming a rapper in
Yep.
this movie,
Mhm.
which
It's awesome.
and it's like her like story about how she finds her voice right before she turns 40. And I think this is like such a funny movie, and it like takes so many different strange turns that you don't think it's going to, and is like sweet in strange moments and raunchy in other strange moments, and just like such a joy to behold. The actors, Peter Kim as Archie, her manager, he's fantastic. Oswin Benjamin as Dee, who is her producer.
He's really good at
He's
it.
so good. He's so good. Reed Birney as Jay Whitman, who's just a delicious villain in this movie. And all of the kids in it, I'm not going to
They're
list all their
awesome.
names here, but they are all great, funny, heartfelt, incredible.
True to life students.
Yeah, just a real winner for me.
Incredible. Really represents what I've seen of both scenes it's about in hip hop and in theater. And very funny too. a 4-year-old version on Netflix.
So this is one that we all watched together. Like, let me just preface by saying this is not one that I'm recommending our listeners to go watch, but this is a movie that I think we should talk about because it was a very well-made movie that like affected all of us pretty viscerally. So the movie is, and I want to warn listeners who might be thinking of thirst watching this movie. Think twice.
Don't do it.
The Devil All the Time, starring Robert Pattinson, Tom Holland, Sebastian Stan, Riley Keough, Haley Bennett, and Bill Skarsgård. Written and directed by Antonio Campos.
No lie in the title. The Devil All the Time.
All
Netflix.
the time.
Pretty brutal.
Not some of the time. All the time.
I'm gonna be honest, I mostly thirst watched it. Like, I was like interested in it, but I was like, and then I'm glad I seen it. Maybe it was brutal. It is one of the most brutal movies I've ever watched in my life.
And you know what? I had to go tell my 17-year-old younger sister. I was like, I know you love Tom Holland. Just don't do it. I was like, there's going to be so many like young teen girls who watch this movie and just are in for a trip. Maybe they won't even get through it because I'm sure as a 16-year-old girl, I would pause that and never look back.
Dude,
after like the first
As
5
a-
when
minutes.
Dudley drops the spiders on his face after
No.
that.
Yeah, I thought about it. I was like, no, but I was already so powered through half of it. I was like, I'm going to keep going. But
we all went through it together, so that
was-
helped.
I do want to say that Tom Holland is incredible in this movie.
The acting by everyone is so great. It still, in my opinion, does not quite make it worth it.
No, absolutely. I think it's great cinematography and some incredible performances wasted on just like pointless poverty porn.
Yeah. It screwed me up for like several weeks in ways that I wasn't like fully conscious that it was the cause of, but like would have nightmares, like horrible stuff that like I think I was thinking about that movie for a long time because it's so
Yeah.
it also is interesting because Wade and Emmett are both Ohioans. Is that how you say that?
My mom's
Kind
from
of.
Ohio.
You have
I'm
Ohio roots.
Okay.
And I'm a West Virginian. I don't know. It was like, that was, I feel like also another big draw is like, oh, this is like
yeah.
where we're grew up kind of and have like some of my roots in. So we're like, let's like go. And then it also made it sad because it's still very, a lot like what I know of West Virginia. The way, I mean, it's set in the 50s, but just like this sad beating on of life. There's a lot more murder in it, though.
There is a lot of deaths.
Cool. So I brought along a list. These are 10 films that are sort of my favorite films that were released from January to November this year. We are recording this on December 18th, so this will be probably a little bit different from my actual finalized 10 favorite movies of the year, just because I'm going to cram a lot in these last 2 weeks, and also because some stuff hasn't released. So for context, the movies that I haven't seen yet, but 1 and 2 that already came out this year: Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, First Cow, The Nest, Small Axe, Mank, Sound of Metal, and Wolfwalkers. And we have also not seen, because they're not out yet, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Another Round, Soul, Wonder Woman 1984, and Promising Young Woman.
So many more.
That's so many movies.
All of which could very easily make it on to my list if I watch them in time.
I don't even think there's that many days left in the year.
There might not be, or there might be just the exact number. So we better get to
You can
it.
double up a few days.
Yeah,
No, you
absolutely.
can't.
Well, on Christmas Day, Soul and Wonder Woman 1984.
Okay, so you can
we're
double
gonna
up
watch
on
both of
Christmas.
those. Also, the Shark Boy and Lava Girl sequel is coming
Oh,
out on
you
Christmas Day.
have
So
to watch
That's
that.
what I'm going to be watching.
on
First,
Netflix.
I'm not even going to see my family on Christmas Day until I've seen that.
Yeah. No, why would you? You have to know what
said-
happens.
I can't possibly come and open presents right now. I'm watching the sequel to Shark Boy and Lava Girl. So please
And they should
give me
respect
peace.
that.
All right, here we go.
It's aggressive. I'm sorry.
Roughly ordered number 10, Boy State. This is a documentary on Apple TV Plus, which is about the summer camp Boy State, which is not a thing I knew existed, but it's a summer camp where thousands of teenage boys come together and form their own government for a week. It is set in 2018 in the Texas chapter and sort of loosely follows 4 boys from different socioeconomical backgrounds coming into it and sort of how they vie for running of president of this government. Kelly, thoughts on Boys State?
This is maybe one of my top 5. It's definitely in my top 5 favorite movies of the year. I knew nothing about it going into it, but I think about it all the time. I was trying to talk to my brother about it, like trying to convince him to watch it a few weeks ago. It really it was so interesting because I went into it. I know about Boys State via the South Carolina chapter of it because I used to work in a theater over the summers that was on a college campus that had Boys State, and we would cross paths with them, and I hated them because they were teenage boys. But they were very frustrating to deal with, so I had a negative connotation. So I was like, oh yeah, let's like watch this movie so I can hate on them some more. But it was incredibly eye-opening. It also made me kind of realize that looks, I can't judge a person based on where they come from, especially socioeconomically, and especially in the South. I think there are a lot of people I put labels on of not being empathetic or not at the end of the day being into this or that. But seeing these boys who are teenagers, 17, 18, 16 years old, come together and create something, and even though they don't have the same ideals and ideas and a lot of different things, they're still able to come together and create something. And it was like a very emotional, very beautiful. It kind of made me look at the relationships in my lives, very close people that I disagree with heavily on a lot of political stuff, and just seeing how oh wow, these 16-year-old boys are able to deal with this and work through it and still have empathy for each other and love and care for one another. It was really impactful, really powerful. I think it's one of the craziest documentaries.
Yeah, very well said. And it is just very intense, and it's I don't know if they can get it together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. I also think that it is sort of, for me, the best of reality TV. It captures that feeling of watching things happen in real life when there are such huge stakes on, in such a way that it's I would recommend if anyone likes watching reality TV and maybe thinks a political documentary is not what you're into. I suspect that anyone watching this movie would be invested in what's going on.
Oh, it's juicy.
Okay, number 9, Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. This was the DC Comics movie that came out this year. It's about Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. It's a breakup movie, I guess, about her breaking up with the Joker and then finding that everyone in the city wants to kill her when she's no longer under Joker's protection, and kind of going on some wild adventures facing off against Ewan McGregor's incredible villain, Black Mask. It's an R-rated, irreverent, violent sort of action comedy.
I loved it. I also have one part that I truly remember that just sticks out in my brain, and that's that incredible breakfast sandwich.
Oh, yeah. Think about it all the time.
It looks incredible.
Yeah.
All the time,
There was
baby.
just Emmett, you should go back and watch it just for the breakfast sandwich. I'll go and find a picture of it. There was just this one scene that really put a lot of emphasis on this breakfast sandwich she had. It looked incredible, and I'm hungry just talking about it. That was the best part of the movie. No, I'm just kidding. It was incredible. It was a good movie. It was a great action movie. Great female-led action movie. It was killer.
What stood out to me about it was how sexualized Harley Quinn is in everything we've seen her in, but watching her be directed by a female, and oh my gosh, her hair is actually up. There's a scene where they're fighting, one of the girls has her hair down, the other girl hands her a hair tie. That's realistic. That's what would happen. They're not having these sexy bouncy curls while they're running around in leotards. I
only have sexy bouncy curls when I'm running around in my leotard. So I don't know what you're talking about, Kelly.
Yeah, I aspire to you.
Crime.
Yeah.
Killer movie, incredible soundtrack album. The soundtrack is one of my favorite records of the year. It's one of maybe the first time I've ever had the experience, the very a niche comic booky nerd experience of seeing something pretty obscure that I've read a lot of comics about and have never seen on screen, getting to see it on the big screen. And I also want to call out Mary Elizabeth Winstead's Huntress, who is sublime in this. This is kind of the take on the Deadpool thing or the Quentin Tarantino thing that is like most appealing to me. I think particularly because Harley Quinn is also like a fourth wall breaking, irreverent, violent character. But in this movie, she's surrounded by everyone else is like a real person who is aware of how annoying she is and is trying to do things.
Right.
And so it's also kind of about like what it would be really like to deal with someone who's a character like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about them making like a giant shift. It's about them like doing one thing to be a little bit less of a jerk once, which I think is great.
Yeah.
Number 8, I'm thinking of Ending Things.
Trippy.
This is a Charlie Kaufman movie on Netflix. It is about a couple who just started dating who go on a very long road trip to his house out in the country for Thanksgiving to see his parents. And on the trip and as they get there, strange things start happening. It's a very dreamy, very wordy, atmospheric horror film. It's David Thewlis and Toni Collette as the parents of the son who are doing some crazy things. It's very referential to other media. Laura, thoughts on I'm Thinking of Ending Things?
It had my mind reeling for days, which a lot of movies, I can separate my brain and my thoughts pretty easily when I leave the movies, especially like scary movies. I just like disconnect from them when I leave because I don't want to be scared anymore. But I could not do that with this movie, which is saying a lot. It's absolutely like beautiful in the screenwriting and also like just in the film itself and the cinematography. Very, very interesting. I know it's really different from the book, which I haven't read. A lot of people were not happy about that. It is also one of my favorite films of the year, but I still don't really understand it. But it was just beautiful and really, really weird. Like really weird.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like the main thing people say about it is confusing, which is fair. But I do want to be clear, at least to me, it isn't confusing on a moment-to-moment level. Like, it's not like strange things are happening and you don't understand why they're happening. It's just sort of that, like, up until the very end, you're not certain sort of what is causing this and what they're getting at. But it is, like, the events of this movie, anyone could track. Like, it's about them being in the car. It's about them getting to the house. It's about them going to the basement. It's not, like, incomprehensible things are happening and you're like, what am I looking at?
There's also some really cool parallels to the musical Oklahoma. They have the whole dream ballet in there.
Interesting.
It's very cool. And when I was watching it, I was like, wait a second. Well, they make references to Oklahoma pretty much throughout the whole thing. And then they start doing the dream ballet kind of, very unexpectedly. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is so like, it was just woven like so well into the script. It was just so cool seeing that.
It's a little hard to talk about without spoiling. I will say what they're getting at with the ending, I think, is very bold. And it's kind of something that you get the most. You kind of need to come in with certain things in order to get what is going on. And for that, I was very thankful to have watched it with you, who got all of the Oklahoma stuff and helped us piece it together a little bit. But I would straight up recommend it to anyone old enough to be watching it.
Yeah, we did have to put our brains together to be like, what?
Yeah,
what just happened here?
It's a little dreamy, beautiful, frightening puzzle of a movie.
I have a question. Is it scary? Because I watched the trailer and I said absolutely not. It freaked me out. The trailer did.
No, it's not as scary as the trailer because I know what you're talking about, and it's not scary in the way that like you expect it to be. It's just kind of unsettling.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it's a movie that is sort of like about a sense of dread escalating for 2 hours until it boils over and cracks.
It's like worth the watch though. It's so like your mind just
sounds like all of 2020.
yeah. It was a bit like afterwards I was a bit exhausted, which is how I felt after I watched Midsummer. Very similar feelings, not as drastic, but just like exhausted from like trying, like it was making my mind like just go all these places trying to understand it and trying to like really just take it all in. I would love to watch it again. I'll watch it with you guys. It was great.
Me too. Okay, number 7, I think, Christopher Nolan's Tenet. This was the only blockbuster that came out in theaters this year, post-pandemic. It is a timey-wimey adventure from Christopher Nolan that features a very physically game John David Washington and Robert Pattinson, along with a very tall Elizabeth Debicki and a truly unhinged Kenneth Branagh as a Russian supervillain. It's a movie that's all about doing every single thing in it with practical effects. Emmett, thoughts on Tenet?
I mean, what did they pay Branagh in gin? Like, come on. This movie is it's so good. Forget about Branagh. It doesn't even matter why he's in the movie. He like probably should be played by a stand-in in like a caution suit or something. But this movie kicks so much ass. John David Washington, incredible.
Oh my gosh.
He is his own worst enemy. Truly.
Chef's kiss.
It's wild, this movie. And Robert Pattinson.
Chef's kiss.
Love it. Yeah, love it.
So fun in this movie. This is kind of like his take on Bond. And I think maybe for Nolan, kind of like his take on doing a Bond movie too.
Yeah, it's good. It's so good. Forget about Branagh. And Olivia Sticky Wicky. What's her name?
Olivia Sticky Wicky.
Elizabeth.
You were really close, though. I mean, like, really close.
Olivia Sticky Wicky.
Olivia
And the best supporting actress goes to
Wait, what is her name then?
Elizabeth Debicki.
Well, so the leading lady in this film is incredible. She does have a child that is very emotionally important to her.
We all do.
What?
What?
Okay. Just keep going. Keep going. Just keep going. We won't get an explanation for that one. There is none.
Whatever. She's at one point she's like, they're like, the whole world is gonna die. She says, even my son.
Like, yes, ma'am.
Like, yeah.
Oh man,
That's kind of how it works.
Wait,
yeah.
thoughts on Tenet?
This movie is really cool. It's more of a vibe than a movie. I feel like Christopher Nolan has this quote where he was like, really the key to unlocking Tenet was Travis Scott coming in and making the song for us. But it's like that it is the vibe of the movie.
That makes sense. If Tenet was on Tinder,
Is it a good song?
You'd probably like it, Kelly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's also a movie carried on the very strapping shoulders of John David Washington.
Incredible.
I mean, this movie is Hot Boy Summer. The things that John David Washington does in this movie with a fire truck and with a cheese grater have not left my mind ever since. Separately. Those are two separate
It is a
occasions.
Hot Boy Summer movie.
Dude, when the two
also
of them...
Hamish Patel
When the two
in
of
the
them
speedboat.
Oh, that's...
Get out of here.
Get out of here.
Number 6. Straight Up on Netflix. This is a movie written, directed, and starring James Sweeney. It is about a young gay man in Los Angeles with crippling OCD who, after sort of a lot of failures in his love life, decides to start dating a woman. It is a rom-com that is very stylistically and referentially inspired by the Gilmore Girls.
It's so cute.
Laura, what did you think about Straight Up?
Is that it's really cute. The main actor is an incredible actor. I loved him in it. And I remember the color green. There's a lot of green in it. The sets are very colorful. And there's really pretty houses and like... It is very stylistic. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, the main character's job is sort of house sitting for rich people in Los Angeles. Oh. So the film plays out across a ton of like mansions that he's house sitting at. and it's all very symmetrical, all very beautiful. This is a movie I liked when I saw and then just really stuck with me, like really had a profound impact on me. I don't think about myself as being someone who deals with OCD in a big way, even though my family talks about me in those terms a lot. But like watching this movie, I related to a lot of it, and it made me think about some things in my own life in a pretty big way. And I think, like you said, James Sweeney is like really a revelation in all three roles, like as the actor, as the stuff he does with the direction, and like we said, this very witty, very fast script. And I think the ending this movie comes to is really beautiful and something I think about a lot too.
I just like remembered that final picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Wow.
The very last scene, sort of.
Yeah, it's really good.
How they figure out the puzzle of this movie is
just
wonderful.
like this like whimsical, unexpected relationship that you get to watch. And you're like, this is so funny. This like shouldn't be working. This shouldn't be like something that like clicks, but it's really cool to see. It's just really unexpected, and I did like it a lot.
Number 5, The Trial of the Chicago 7. This is on Netflix. It's a courtroom drama from Aaron Sorkin, who knows courtroom dramas better than maybe anyone else. It is based on the true events of a couple of, well, it's 8 people who are protesting at the Democratic National Convention in the 60s, some of whom are very loosely, if at all, connected to each other, who are all put to trial after the presidential administration changes as a sign of like proving that we're not going to put up with young Democrats protesting the Vietnam War anymore. It is a fascinating, unbelievable true story I'd never heard of. Laura, any thoughts on Trial of the Chicago 7?
It's not always easy to watch this movie. I think it's a really important story. I'm shocked. Like, this just goes to show like all the things they don't teach you in school, and how whitewashed our history classes are, and how we don't learn so many important things, and so many important things that people did. And this movie really just hits it out of the park. It's an incredible representation of this story, I think. And yeah, had me bawling like really bad. It's I'm still kind of processing through it, to be honest. We didn't watch it too long ago, and it really just hit my heart, and it's a really important movie. I really loved it, and I appreciate it. I'm really glad I watched it.
Yeah, me too. Definitely the most emotionally affected I've been by a movie this whole year. The performances in it, of which there are dozens, are all incredible. I think I spent a lot of this year getting very angry that people just didn't tell me about history. This was spurred in January by doing a deep dive into the Lavender Act, which Emmett and I did together, and learning about sort of like the very open and public history of queer rights in the United States, and then learning throughout the year about the Atlanta race riots, and even learning through Karina Longworth's podcast about the history of Song of the South and the way people reacted to it at the time it came out. This was another example of that, of me like not believing how close the conversation being had 60 years ago was to the conversation we're having at this exact moment. And the fact that we got there because people never talked about stories like this, like that whole generations were so close to exacting lasting change, and then because of tide shifts it didn't happen, and then we forgot and have sort of barked up the same tree again. But this movie is, another movie that watching it in this year hit really different. And another movie I would recommend to everyone, to like literally everyone of age watching. I think anyone would enjoy it.
What was that on?
That's on Netflix, The Trial of the Chicago 7. Moving right along, number 4, a very similar movie, Trolls World Tour.
Woo, woo, woo.
Emmett, Trolls World Tour.
It's a bop. 100%. It's so good. I have not seen the first Trolls. I have no plans to see the first Trolls.
I don't think any of us have.
I never will.
Trolls, I would watch Trolls World Tour any day of the week. It's so good.
A beautiful story.
Beautiful story.
Amazing music.
Killzone, Trolls World Tour.
I do want to say that I went into it wanting to hate it.
It's impossible.
And I don't hate it. And I don't love it, but I do like it. I'm a hater. I'm a hater. I don't really love animated movies, and especially animated musical movies, because I have a thing. Anyway, but I did actually very much enjoy it. There's a whole Western cowboy part.
Oh yeah, I didn't give the pitch of this movie.
Acid trip.
Yeah, I would love to do drugs on this movie.
I really neglected. Okay, this movie is an animated film set in a fantasy world where all of the lands are divided by musical genre. For instance, there's a pop world, there's an EDM world, there's a classical world, and the story is about the ruler of the rock world coming to take over all the other lands and turn them into rock. It is also, as you all have alluded to, an acid trip of a movie. The experience of watching this movie cannot be described. Yeah, and I will say that I rewatched it once after having already seen it, and it still had that effect on me. I still just could not believe what my eyes were observing on the screen. It's more like watching a Vine compilation on YouTube, filtered if you turned your TV to invert colors and turned it upside down and then closed your eyes and listened to it. That's the closest thing you could get to the experience of watching this movie.
I know we probably had some trippy stuff as kids too, but this being a monumental movie of your childhood.
What would it do to you?
What would it do to you? Because it's just wild as an adult.
Yeah, I feel what hope we have for this generation.
I just want to know. I just want to know their thoughts on it. I'm going to have to ask the next
You're
kid
a teacher,
I see.
You can ask.
Yeah, I guess so. Of middle schoolers though, and high schoolers who some middle schoolers have probably seen it.
We love this movie, and I think some people think it's kind of a funny meme.
No.
And there is a meme that it's a movie called Trolls World Tour that is this good, but I just want to say that it is really this good.
Yeah, it's really that good.
It's not a meme. And I also think the message of the movie is very important. And it's it's a small thing. It's not that important, but I think preaching musical tolerance, this movie is willing to engage in the conversation of the inherent classism of musical genre and sort of what it means when people are I like everything except for rap and country. Or except for rap, metal, and country. What it really is saying when you are sort of closing yourself off from different musical genres. And it's not saying, that you have to love every musical genre. It's a message about tolerance. And I love it for that. I think it's
and acceptance.
And also gorgeous funky beats.
And also, Emmett just got me finger puppet versions of many of the characters for Christmas, and I'm very excited about it. So thank you, Emmett.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, number 3, another animated movie. This is Onward from Disney Pixar. It is... we actually watched this in theaters on opening weekend, and less than a month later watched it when it came out on Disney Plus in the middle of the pandemic.
Wild experience.
Which, was a wild experience. Both. This is also set in a fantasy land. It's about 2 brothers whose relationship has been defined by the death of their father, who find a way to bring back their dad for a day and then mess it up. So they sort of have 24 hours to go on a road trip adventure to bring their dad back and get to talk to him again. Kelly, thoughts on Onward?
I know I just said I don't really like animated movies. I do love this movie. It was so sweet. It made me think a lot about different things. It did make me see myself in my brother, and that the main character has a very is just always annoyed as his brother and doesn't appreciate him. And I feel I specifically one brother do that too, and I was maybe I should appreciate these lovely gestures. It's sweet. It's super well done. It's Pixar, so great little movie. 10 out of 10 recommend. I also love all the fantasy. There's fun fantasy-esque things that are really cool, and it's just kind of fun to see another world. I love world building.
It's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. It's built on a D&D world, which is fun. So there's lots of little like jokes about that. I think there's one part in it. I can't remember exactly where it is, but there's a good old classic funny car chase in it.
Oh yeah.
That had me rolling on the floor when I was watching this. That's the one part.
I do
It's
remember
like,
a large reaction
I
from you.
freaked out about this car chase scene.
Yeah, I think it's the best Pixar since Cars.
Damn.
I think
don't
it's
agree.
Absolutely top scale Pixar.
It's
I
top,
think it's
top Pixar.
as good as WALL-E, Ratatouille, Incredibles, Toy Story, take your pick. I think it is as good as the best stuff they've done.
It's just a great original story, and I think everybody like can relate to it and see themselves in it, which is like the great thing about
Yeah.
Pixar. Pixar always does that, but I think like just like the family aspect, even if you don't have an older brother, you know, you have maybe like that sweet relationship with a mom or like any of your siblings, really. You know, there's just something you can always relate to, and that final scene's gonna make you cry. It will.
It did. It did it.
It will.
Yeah, it made me cry both times I saw it. I think the emotional twist that this movie pulls is incredible. And I also think it is like so much fun to watch. A stellar movie. Okay, number 2, The Vast of Night. This is a movie on Amazon Prime. It is set in New Mexico in the 1950s. And if that gives you some ideas, you might be on the right track. It is about a woman who runs the telephone operating line, and a young woman and a young man who runs a radio station while most of the rest of the town is at a basketball game. It is all set in one night. It's very atmospheric. It's very much like set in the 50s, and like it's not so much a Mad Men thing as it is like trying to put it in like what would really be like if you were like following a bunch of people in the 50s around. And it is a movie that is sort of less about the story they're telling than how they're telling it, if that's fair to say. It is less about it being an original story you've never seen before than a story you've never seen told in this way before.
Yeah, it's a very theatrical script. There's like a whole scene where the screen just goes blank and you're listening to a monologue, and you don't even really, as you're watching it, realize that that's a strange thing for a movie to do, because it just sets itself up by just using like this really like thick like language and flowy language the whole movie, so that when it gets you to that point, and it also incorporates that whole radio show aspect where you're just listening. And I thought that was like that was such a cool part of that movie, where the screen is just blank and you're just listening for so long, and it just transports you, and it does such a good job. It's super theatrical in that way.
Yeah, I think this may sound a little redundant, but I think it is a movie about the power of words. And I think it very clearly has something to say about whose words we should be listening to and whose we are ignoring. Emmett, Vast of Night?
There's a scene in this that scares me. I mean, there's many scenes in this.
I was going to talk about that scene.
No. There's like
right
two moments in this that scare me terribly, but I want to talk about the one that Kelly's not going to talk about.
Okay.
And that is, it's just her at the switchboard. And it's got to be a 3-minute long shot.
Incredible.
Of just her at the switchboard, switching out and talking to different people. And like the tension is just raising and raising. And like by the end of it, you feel like you're going to throw up. You're like you're so nervous. And like you think something's about to pop out behind her. Because the other thing is, this whole movie is an alien movie. But you never know, like you don't know when or what or like how the aliens are going to manifest. So you're always sure that they're like right about to pop out and do something. Kelly, you want to talk about the other awful
I didn't find this movie, I wouldn't say it's scary. It is just like eerie and tense, but I don't want to spoil it. It is one of the most like intense moments I've ever seen in a movie. Maybe not intense, it's just insane. I like got chills. I think about this fairly often. Oh, it's so spooky.
Is it involving an old woman who lives alone, or involving a car ride?
There is a car ride.
Okay,
it is
I
the
know which
car
one you're talking
ride,
about.
and that one.
The old lady scene also.
That scene is
terrifies me.
also just a huge monologue.
Yeah.
Just her sitting on a chair monologuing. There's so many huge monologues in this, and they
But
do
I was
such a good
never
job.
bored. I was
No, you're
never
not.
like, I can't. I'm like
it's
bored.
so well directed.
It is insane
because you don't get bored. You don't even realize that you're just listening to one person talk for a really long time, and that's how you know it's good, because you would normally notice that.
Yeah. This was the first film from Andrew Patterson. I suspect it will not be the last. It's a film he independently financed by shooting NBA commercials for the most part of the last decade, and saved up all his money and made this movie. Made it for next to no money, and you would never guess it, because like this film is absolutely gorgeous, and the cinematography work they do in it. There's one specific long shot in general that is so incredible. My recommendation to anyone watching it would be to like give it 20 minutes, because I think that it's not that it's boring up front, but I think it's almost like watching a Shakespeare play, where at the beginning you will be like, I don't understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
And then like it kicks into your brain as you go on.
Yeah, it's a bit of a different dialect.
Yeah.
Just being, 1950s New Mexico.
I also
definitely speak different.
I feel like they also like just kind of jump right into like the middle of life. Like there's no like, well, this just happened to me, and that's like an exciting thing. It's just like they are like literally talking about like a basketball game, and they like lost something. Like lost a jersey or something. I don't really specifically remember, but it's not
I think that's a good point, because it's sneaky that way, because the plot still develops pretty slowly, and so by the time the plot kicks in, you like know everything you need to know to get going, but it just like tricks you into like feeling it as like the whole world is already there and alive, by like having the first 20 minutes feel like all that other stuff is already going on.
Yeah, an excellent movie. One of my two favorites of the year, and when we talk about it, I'm like, oh, maybe it's number one. So the last movie we have to talk about is Bad Education. This is a movie on HBO Max. It is the second film from the young playwright Corey Finley, whose debut was 2018's incredible Thoroughbreds. If you've watched The Queen's Gambit
good.
And you love Anya Taylor-Joy, go and watch Thoroughbreds, because you love her in that too.
And then watch The Witch.
This movie and Thoroughbreds are both movies that have some hang-ups about New England suburbia. This movie is a true story, and I've actually done a lot of research into it, and it's 95% true, based in large part on the fact that it was written by someone who was a first-hand witness to everything that happens. It's set in Long Island in the early 2000s. It's a little difficult to talk about without spoiling like the true thrill ride that is this movie of uncovering what is going on. But it stars Hugh Jackman in a career best performance as the principal of a very wealthy high school, where the vice principal, played by Allison Janney, early on is discovered to have been embezzling money from the school. It also involves a subplot with the school's high school newspaper reporting team, sort of uncovering a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes. It is sort of a mystery thriller and also an unbelievable true story. Kelly, thoughts on Bad Education?
I loved it. It is very hard to talk about it without giving stuff away. There's like one reveal in it that is so good and like so scary. It also, I love that you love like the bad guys in it too. Like I love movies that I'm like rooting for, like, and again, I'm saying it now, I don't even think they are villains. Like, I mean, they are definitely criminals, but I don't think they're like bad people. But the movie made me do that.
Educators.
They're bad educators.
Yeah, I blame it on the schools.
I would just say that this movie was a trip for me, because it truly just hit so close to home, like across the pond close to home. And that is the high school I went to.
Laura's from the north.
Like that, like just a hair less of the accent. Not like there's still an accent, but those were the front desk ladies. That was my principal. Like that didn't happen at my school. Whatever happened in this movie did not happen at my school. Maybe. I don't know. But I was tripped out for like a good 20 minutes at the beginning of it, just because I was like, how did they get this so right? I was like, this is weird. They got it good. That's what my high school was like.
I do want to say also, I forgot about this. Annalee Ashford is in this.
Oh yeah,
she's like
great.
a side character. She's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I love her from her stage performances, but she is killing it. Hollywood should hire her. I'm so proud of her. They should hire her more. Mm-hmm. She's incredible. 10 out of 10 performance.
Lots of good theater actors in this. Emmett?
Hugh Jackman, career best.
Truly
Incredible.
He's so good.
He's so good in it.
It's awesome.
It's awesome. That's all I've got to say.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's so good. I want to give a special shout out to Rafael Casal, who is incredible in Blind Spotting, which Kelly and I rewatched together.
Yes.
Playing a character in that, playing a white rapper who is so specific that it feels like it must be who he is in real life. And then in this, he is like this unbelievable dreamboat who has, I will also say, an incredible dancing scene. Like one of the sort of most like dreamy, tragic, evocative dancing scenes in this. And plays like a completely different character from anything I've seen him do before. But everyone in this movie absolutely knocks it out of the park. Yeah. And you can watch it and be shocked about what was happening.
That probably happens a lot more than you think.
I'm sure. I mean, think of how many times that it doesn't get relayed to the public and we don't know about it.
Yeah. Or people just never get caught.
Never get caught.
Absolutely.
That's my motto.
All right. Well, those are our favorite movies of the year. Hopefully it gives you guys a little something to watch in the holiday and in the slow January months. Thank you, guys.
I love those slow January months.
The many slow January months.
Slow January.
You know, we talk a lot about the pandemic. I don't know if people also remember how horrible last January was.
It sucked.
That was a specific thing to last year that it felt like January was like 3 months long.
It was
Oh, yeah. What all happened that was bad?
Australia was burning down.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
Kobe Bryant died.
Uh-huh.
There was just like a lot of things all at once.
I did sober January.
Kelly was sober.
I was bad.
Damn.
I was working a lot and I remember being like at work, sweeping up the floor, watching the news every night and just being like, good God, this is horrible. And then March came.
I got an almost $2,000 speeding ticket. Isn't that, or wait,
it
how
was
much
$800.
$800
But it was
speeding
a
ticket
mistake.
that ended up being a clerical error. But I didn't find that out in January, so it wasn't a good month.
Not good there. I was walking all around neighborhoods, knocking on people's doors.
Oh, in the rain.
in all types of climate.
I just remember you coming home like wet one night. And you're like, I no longer like this job.
Well, thank you guys for watching movies with me this year.
Thanks.
It
was a pleasure.
Couldn't ask for better movie watching partners.
Thanks for making the best popcorn almost every time we watch a movie.
Yeah, for real.
It's really good.
Coming to the Cinema Bones merch site soon. Some
Sweet
popcorn made by
popcorn.
Wayne. Just in little Ziploc baggies mailed to your house.
Yeah, it may be stale, but I actually really like it stale
If
too.
they're in little Ziploc baggies, they'll probably make it there fine.
Yeah.
Oh, and thanks to all our listeners for supporting us.
Oh, yeah.
Through these last couple of months, the first year that We Were a Podcast is ending, and we're really excited to go into the next one.
Hot dog. I'm super stoked.
We will be back next week, same time, same place, in the new year with Days of Future Past. Thank you, Kelly and Laura, for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having us. You're always a pleasure.
All right. Thanks, everyone. God bless us, everyone.
An old acquaintance be forgot.
Merry Christmas.
And
How
over all lang syne.
Cinema Bums is a production of DKG Podcasts. It is created and produced by Emma Temple and me, Wade Lawrence Holloman. I also edit and mix the podcast. Our theme music is by Zane Holloman, who you can find on Bandcamp, and our show art is by Autumn Beckner. Our social media is managed by Laura Bennett. If you like what you hear, please tell all your friends, and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, the 2 best ways to spread the word about our work. You can also follow us on Instagram @CinemaBums or email us at cinemabumspod@gmail.com. Don't flake on us. We'll be back next week.